The first hour of a video game is a critical time. It's the make or break moment. Some games take a while to get going. You hear people say, oh, just stick with it. It gets good after 20 hours. And sometimes they're right. But I feel like the best feeling is when it kicks off from the moment you start playing the game and you know right then and there that you're not putting it down anytime soon. As always, I'm Daniel, and today, you read the title, 20 single-player games you'll be obsessed with after the first hour.
Starting off at number 20 is Sifu. This is a classic revenge story, but it's told with such a brilliant, unique twist. You play as the child of a Sifu, a martial arts master living in this modern-day Chinese city. Your home, your Wuguan, is attacked by a group of 5 former students, led by your father's main rival, and they kill him right in front of you. 8 years later, you're an adult, and you've dedicated your entire life to one thing: hunting down the 5 people responsible and getting your revenge. You have a magical talisman that prevents you from truly dying. When an enemy strikes a fatal blow, you don't die, you get back up, but you've aged. The first time maybe you age like a year, but the more you die on a single run, the higher that death counter goes, and the more years you age with each fall. It's a fascinating system. As you get older, your martial arts knowledge deepens, so your attacks actually get stronger, but your body becomes more frail, so your maximum health gets lower. Die too many times, and you'll hit your 70s, where the next death is a true, permanent death, and you have to start the entire level over. The core combat itself is great. It's an intricate third-person brawler focused on kung fu, and it is punishing. The first hour makes you desperately try to master the parry and dodge system, learning enemy attack patterns and figuring out how to manage groups of enemies without getting surrounded. You can grab bottles, kick stools, vault over counters. The environment is like a weapon. It's made by Slow Clap, the same team that made Absolver, and they are like masters at this kind of deep, weighty combat. That first hour is all about breaking you down and then building you back up. You will fail repeatedly, but the game has this roguelike element where you can spend experience to permanently unlock skills. So even when you fail a run, you're making progress, you're learning. And once you go from being a clumsy student to like a focused master, it becomes impossible to put down.
At number 19, we have Ghost of Yotei. Now, if you played and loved Ghost of Tsushima, this is basically more of that, but Sucker Punch has refined almost everything. This is a standalone sequel set way later in 1603 in the northern part of Japan, a place called Izo, which is modern-day Hokkaido. The premise is, again, a classic revenge tale, just like Tsushima, even the previous game I talked about, Sifu. You play as Atsu, an Onomusha, or female warrior, who watched her family get slaughtered by a group called the Yotei Six when she was just a child. 16 years later, she returns home to hunt them all down. We all know that Sucker Punch are masters of visual design, and the landscapes around Mount Yotei, snowy fields, vibrant forests, are jaw-dropping. You're immediately thrown into this world that feels both beautiful and dangerous. But the gameplay is what really grabs you. The core combat from Tsushima is back, but they've evolved it. Instead of the stance system, they've introduced a new weapon counter system. Atsu uses a whole arsenal, a changed sickle, a spear, dual katanas, and you have to switch between them to counter different types of enemies. It's honestly a perfect loop of exploration and visceral combat. You're learning the new weapon dynamics, you're probably taking on a bounty or two, and you're just getting lost in the world. Unlike the first game, Atsu is not concerned with honor. She's fiery, she's brash, and her story is a straight-up brutal quest for vengeance. You feel that drive immediately. The game wastes no time in setting the stakes and letting you loose in its stunning world. It's one of those games that, from the moment you see the first sweeping vista and engage in your first fluid, deadly duel, you know you're in for something special, honestly. So up next, at number 18, we have Dying Light the Beast. Techland is back, and they've brought back the original protagonist, which is, of course, Kyle Crane. The premise is pretty dark. Kyle Crane has been captured and experimented on for years, and they've injected him with zombie DNA. He finally escapes, but now he's got this literal beast inside him that he's struggling to control. Now, this is still about revenge, just like the two games we've talked about so far. It's still got that similar concept, but this is kind of different a bit. He's, of course, out for revenge against the man who did this to him, and his journey takes him to the Castor Woods, a brand new open world that was once a tourist spot in the Western Alps. It's still pure dying light adrenaline, the first-person parkour, which is Techland's signature, and thankfully, it feels better than ever. You're immediately scrambling through dense forests and over abandoned cabins, and the movement is just so fluid. But then, you get your first taste of the beast powers, which is the big hook. I mean, it's literally in the title, Dying Light the Beast. So yeah, you're not just like drop-kicking zombies off rooftops anymore. You're tapping into this primal rage that lets you crush skulls and literally rip enemies in half. And what's also worth mentioning is that the classic tension at night is still cranked up to 11. The woods become this pitch-black hunting ground, and you feel that familiar dread, but now there's a new layer to it. You have to decide whether to run and hide or to unleash the monster inside you to fight back. It's a constant internal battle because it perfectly sets up this brutal new dynamic for the series. You're powerful, but you're also a time bomb, and learning to control that power while just trying to survive is instantly addictive.
At number 17, we have Days Gone. One of my favorite games on this list, where you play as Deacon St. John, a former outlaw biker trying to survive in a brutal post-apocalyptic Oregon. It's been a couple of years since a global pandemic turned most of humanity into these mindless, feral creatures they call freakers. They're just like rebranded zombies. But this isn't your typical zombie game, though. Deacon is a drifter, a bounty hunter, just trying to get by in this harsh world while also grappling with the loss of his wife, Sarah, holding on to this tiny sliver of hope that she might still be alive somewhere. Days Gone does such a good job of throwing you right into the thick of it. The real hook, I think, is the drifter bike. You're taught right away that you have to maintain it, refuel it, and upgrade it. If you've played the DLC Dying Light The Following, which I did talk about in my previous video, which was about 15 essential DLCs, you really have to play after completing the main game. So yeah, the point is, if you've played the DLC of the original Dying Light, you'll feel right at home here, because it is really, really similar, man. I mean, riding your bike through the muddy back roads and dense forests of the Pacific Northwest just feels great. The bike has a real sense of weight and power to it. Of course, we can't talk about Days Gone without talking about the Freakers. So they aren't the slow, shambling zombies you're used to. They're fast, they're aggressive, and they travel in groups. It gives you a taste of the danger, making you feel vulnerable. You're scrounging for supplies, crafting makeshift weapons, and learning that head-on fights are usually a bad idea. You might stumble upon a massive group of hundreds of Freakers moving as one single terrifying entity. You can't fight it, you can only run. That initial feeling of dread mixed with the freedom of the open road on your bike is a combination that gets its hooks into you immediately. Unfortunately, it had a bit of a mixed reception at launch, but it has become a massive cult classic for a reason, for many reasons, man.
So moving on to number 16 is Ghost Runner. The premise is that you are a cybernetically enhanced ninja, the last of your kind, waking up with amnesia at the bottom of a grim, cyberpunk megastructure called Dharma Tower. It's humanity's last shelter after a global cataclysm, and it's ruled by a tyrant. A disembodied voice called the Architect guides you, telling you to climb the tower and take your revenge on the person who put you in this state. The gameplay grabs you and does not let go. It's a first-person lightning-fast parkour action game. You have a katana, and the core mechanic is simple. Everyone, including you, dies in one hit. Can't lie about it, it is a pure shot of adrenaline. You'll have to learn to chain together wall runs, slides, and dashes while using a sensory boost ability that lets you slow down time to dodge bullets in midair, which is great because most games that are into this lightning fast kind of thing, mostly, if not all, have some sort of mechanic that slows things down for a bit. If you die dozens of times, the respawns are instantaneous and the checkpoints are generous, so the frustration never really sets in. Instead, you get this incredible one more try feeling. Each combat encounter is a puzzle box. You're flying through the air, slicing one guy, dodging a bullet, grappling to a new spot, and cutting down another enemy before your feet even touch the ground, which of course makes you feel like the most unstoppable cyber ninja in the universe. I mean, if any game we've talked about so far doesn't fit the title perfectly, you can't say the same for Ghost Runner. This one really fits that obsessed after the first hour kind of game, because that feeling, that perfect flow state, is something you get a taste of in the very first hour, and it's what makes the game instantly obsessive.
Up at number 15 is Hades. Now this is another game that fits the title perfectly, and in here, in Hades, you play as Zagreus, the rebellious and witty son of Hades himself. You've basically had enough of your dad and the dreary underworld, so you decide you're going to fight your way out and escape to the surface to find your long-lost mother. The story is this fantastic, modern take on Greek mythology, and it's filled with these well-written and voice-acted characters from the Greek pantheon who decide to help you on your quest. Now, this is a roguelike, which means when you die, you get sent all the way back to the beginning. But death is not a failure, it is progress. Each time you're struck down, you're sent back to the House of Hades, where you can interact with characters, advance the story, unlock permanent upgrades for Zagreus, and pet your three-headed dog Cerberus, which is very important. So you start your first escape attempt, and the combat is this fast-paced action thing. It feels amazing right from the get-go. And then you run into a gift from one of your relatives on Mount Olympus. Maybe it's a boon from Zeus that makes your attack chain lightning, or one from Athena that lets you deflect projectiles. Of course, these are just examples. These boons completely change your playstyle, and you're constantly making choices to build a unique set of powers for that specific run. Just like in Ghost Runner, this is another kind of game that's got that punishing thing, where you die a few times for sure, but each time you go back, you learn a bit more, you unlock a new weapon, you hear some new gossip from the gods, and you're immediately desperate to jump back in and try a different combination of powers. Supergiant Games created one of the most addictive gameplay loops in a while, and just like every game on this list, you feel that magic from the very first minute.
At number 14 is L.A. Noire. Cole Phelps, a decorated by-the-book World War II veteran who joins the Los Angeles Police Department in 1947. You start out as a uniformed beat cop, but your goal is to rise through the ranks of the LAPD, working your way through the different detective desks: traffic, homicide, vice, and arson. It's set in this absolutely stunning, meticulously recreated version of post-war Los Angeles, the golden age of Hollywood, a city that is glamorous on the surface, but has this corrupt and seedy underbelly. It was published by Rockstar, but you need to get the Grand Theft Auto thing out of your head. It's not about chaos. It's a methodical detective game. The core gameplay loop is what gets you. You arrive at a crime scene, you comb the area for clues, and you get this little sound cue every time you find one, and then you have to interview witnesses and interrogate suspects. Now, the thing that made this game so revolutionary and will obsess you in that first hour are the interrogations. The actors' performances are captured in deep detail, and your main job as a detective is to watch these uncannily realistic faces and decide if they're telling the truth, withholding information, or straight up lying. It has you working your first few cases as a patrolman, and it perfectly teaches you the ropes. You'll investigate a murder scene, find the weapon, and then sit down for your first real interrogation. You have to make that call, accuse someone of lying based on a subtle shift in their eyes or the way their lip trembles, which is just a gaming moment unlike any other. It makes you feel like a real detective. It's unique, it's got that cerebral gameplay combined with the almost cinematic immersion into the world of the 1940s LA, and that is what gets its claws into you right from the start.
So next up, at number 13, we have Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. This is the epic conclusion to the Big Boss saga. You are Punished Venom Snake, a soldier who has just woken up from a 9-year coma. While you were out, your private army and your entire base were destroyed by a shadowy organization, and you lost your left arm in the attack. It's now 1984, and your first mission takes you to Soviet-occupied Afghanistan. Your goal is to rescue your old partner, Kazuhiro Miller, rebuild your army, the Diamond Dogs, and get revenge on the man responsible for it all, the chillingly disfigured Skullface. You start with the prologue, Awakening. It's a long, linear, and cinematic sequence where you're crawling through a hospital that's under attack by everything, which is really confusing. What happens right after that opens up into a very tactical sandbox. How you approach that first enemy outpost is completely 100% up to you. Do you scout it out with your binoculars from a mile away and wait for the cover of darkness? Do you create a distraction over here to pull guards away from your entry point? Do you just say screw it and call in an airstrike? The freedom is staggering. You've got the Fulton recovery system. It's a balloon system that lets you extract stunned or sleeping enemy soldiers, and later weapons, vehicles, shipping containers, even animals, and send them back to your offshore mother base to be recruited into your army, which is a mechanically genius loop. Suddenly, every single enemy outpost is like not just an obstacle anymore, because you know why? They become a potential recruitment center. The Phantom Pain perfects the stealth action genre. It transitioned from a linear set piece to a playground of absolute player freedom, which was honestly addictive.
Coming in at number 12, we've got Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. In Sekiro, you are Wolf, a shinobi in a fantastical version of late 1500s Sengoku Japan. You are bound by an oath to protect a young lord who has the power of immortality through the dragon's heritage. Early on, a rival samurai attacks, severs your arm, and kidnaps the boy. You're left for dead, but you're brought back to life and given a shinobi prosthetic arm, beginning a quest for revenge and to rescue your master. This is a From Software game, but that first hour is crucial because it forces you to unlearn everything you know from Dark Souls or Bloodborne. Now, you might think the gameplay is all about rolling and finding an opening to chip away at a health bar, but no, it is all about posture. The combat is intricate, a violent dance of swords. It's about standing your ground, deflecting your enemy's attacks, and breaking their posture to deliver a single, brutal death blow. You might get humbled by the first mini-boss you meet, but it's in that struggle that the game sinks its claws into you. You start to learn the rhythm, the flow of combat. You learn to be aggressive, not passive. You're also introduced to your prosthetic arm, which can be fitted with different tools like a grappling hook for traversal or an axe to break shields, adding this great layer of tactical depth. Now, like I said, the game is punishing, yes, but it won't take long before it clicks, I promise. That initial hour is a brutal but exhilarating lesson in a completely new kind of combat, and once you get that first taste of mastery, you are absolutely 100% obsessed with perfecting it. If you made it this far, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that hype button, and yeah, I post content like this frequently, so be sure to ring the bell so you don't miss the next one. Yep, at number 11 is Kenshi. In Kenshi, you are a nobody. You are not special. You click New Game, you pick a start like The Wanderer or The Slaves, and you are dropped into a brutal post-apocalyptic sort of sword punk wasteland with nothing. Maybe you have some rags, maybe a rusty iron stick, but you have no skills, no money, and no hope. And at first, your goal is to survive until tomorrow. The world does not care about you. You'll be weak, you'll be starving. You'll see some starving bandits get attacked by a giant desert insect called a skimmer. You'll think, great, I'll just wait for them to kill each other and loot the bodies, and then the skimmer will finish them off and come for you. You'll probably try to fight a goat and get beaten into a coma. And maybe while you're lying unconscious and bleeding out in the sand, some slavers might come along, might just patch up your wounds just enough so you can walk, and then chain you to a rock to mine stone for the rest of your short, miserable life. Getting enslaved in Kenshi is, unironically, one of the best starting strategies. You get free food, free protection from monsters, and while you're mining, your laboring skill is going up. You're getting stronger. Because Kenshi has this learn by doing system. Every single stat is improved by doing. The only way to get better at fighting is to get into fights and get your ass kicked. Your toughness stat literally only increases by taking damage and then getting back up. Your strength goes up by being over-encumbered, so carrying your bleeding friend or a dead body to sell the cannibals across the desert literally makes you stronger. It's a free-form sandbox where there's no main questline. There's nothing telling you where to go, which is why I really love this game. There's freedom. You can be a thief who robs ancient ruins, a trader with a pack beast caravan, a warlord who builds their own city and wages war on the established factions, a humble farmer who just wants to grow some cactus rum. You can do all of it. But first, you have to survive that initial soul-crushing period of being the weakest thing in the entire desert.
So halfway through, at number 10, we have Control. You play as Jesse Faden, who walks into this massive, brutalist, completely featureless skyscraper in New York City called the Oldest House. This building is the headquarters of a top-secret government agency called the Federal Bureau of Control, which deals with all things paranormal. She's there looking for her brother, who was taken by them years ago, but the moment she steps inside, everything goes sideways. The building is in lockdown, it's been invaded by this hostile, otherworldly resonance called the Hiss, and the Bureau's director is dead. By picking up his strange, shape-shifting sidearm, Jesse is instantly and unexpectedly appointed as the new director. The game is from Remedy Entertainment, the people who made Alan Wake and Max Payne, but it's got some issues. The gameplay does have some genuinely cool moments, but it might just be a little bit repetitive, as it was for me, and while the progression system is clearly meant to let you customize your playstyle, the changes you make don't really seem to have any real impact. I don't know if you get me, but still, it's worth playing because the story, the paths, and performances are honestly brilliant. And the Oldest House is a character. It's a place of power that is constantly shifting and changing its layout. You'll walk down a corridor and the walls will just ripple, or you'll find a light switch cord that, when pulled, transports you to an entirely different dimension. It's just so surreal and intriguing right from the start. The gameplay hook is the combination of third-person shooting with Jesse's emerging supernatural powers. The gun you pick up, the service weapon, is an object that can change forms. You even get to unlock your first psychic ability, Launch. This lets you telekinetically rip chunks of concrete out of the walls, grab fire extinguishers, desks, whatever's nearby, and just hurl them at your enemies with devastating force. Control is a blend of like a bizarre mystery and a spectacular physics-based combat that, while repetitive, still gets you completely hooked.
So what we have at number 9 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Star Wars, a few years after the Emperor has executed Order 66 and wiped out the Jedi. You play as Cal, and he's a former Padawan, basically a teenager who survived the Purge and is now living in hiding. He's cut himself off from the Force, trying to forget his past while working a dangerous, grimy job as a scrapper, tearing apart old Republic warships for the Empire. It's this life of just keeping your head down, trying to be invisible. But of course, that can't last forever. A catastrophic accident forces him to make a choice: let his friend die or reveal his powers by using the Force. He chooses his friend, and that one act of heroism immediately puts the Empire's most terrifying Jedi hunters, the Inquisitors, right on his trail. He's forced on the run and ends up being rescued by a small ragtag crew on a desperate mission to find a list of Force-sensitive children and rebuild the Jedi Order before the Empire gets to them. The combat is often described as being Souls-like, but it's much more approachable and I think a perfect fit for a Jedi. It's tactical and deliberate. You're carefully parrying blaster bolts, you're dodging attacks, and you're managing your stamina to break your enemy's block meter, opening them up for a deeply satisfying finish. The opening sequence on the scrapyard planet Abraka is great. It perfectly reintroduces you to the scale and wonder of the Star Wars universe. After that, you get your first taste of the Force powers, pushing stormtroopers off ledges, slowing down time to get past giant spinning blades. It's all there, and it feels great. Fallen Order has some Metroidvania elements. You'll see paths you can't take yet, doors you can't open, vines you can't climb. The game is constantly teasing you with secrets that you know you'll be able to come back for later once you've reawakened more of your Jedi abilities. It does such a phenomenal job of setting up the stakes, introducing you to the crisp, satisfying combat, and giving you this tantalizing glimpse of the Jedi fantasy you're about to live out.
Yeah, at number 8 is Dragon Age Origins. The land of Thedas is gritty, it's politically messy, and it's facing one of its recurring apocalypses, an event called the Blight. This is a massive horde of demonic, twisted creatures called the Darkspawn, led by a soul-corrupted dragon god, the Archdemon. You are a new recruit into a legendary order called the Grey Wardens, a group whose entire purpose is to stop these blights. And just like in most games with this kind of setting, of course things go very wrong at the first major battle. The human army is betrayed by one of its own generals, the king is killed, and the Grey Wardens are all but wiped out, leaving just you and one other survivor. Your monumental task is to somehow enforce ancient treaties, unite a land that's actively tearing itself apart with civil war and political backstabbing, and raise an army to stop the literal end of the world. The Dragon Age Origins, the thing that gives it its name, the origin thing, is the origin stories. You create a character and you live it, not like you don't get a backstory, you do, but you don't read it, you live through it. Your first 1 to 3 hours of the game are a completely unique self-contained prologue based on the race and class you choose. For instance, you might begin your life as a human noble, living a life of privilege in your family's castle, dealing with your arrogant older brother and playing with your Mabari warhound. And then, in one horrific night, you watch as a trusted family friend betrays your parents and your entire home is overrun by soldiers. You barely escape with your life. Or maybe you'll start as a city elf, your story beginning on what should be your wedding day in the slums, only for the local human lord to crash the party and invoke his right to your bride, kicking off a violent, desperate fight against the systemic oppression your people have faced for centuries. These aren't just text blurbs, they are powerful, emotional, playable introductions. It's the spiritual successor to classic computer RPGs like Baldur's Gate. The gameplay is a deeply tactical, party-based combat. It's real-time, but you can pause the action at any moment, zoom out to a top-down tactical view, and issue commands to your entire party like a general. Setting up combos is the key. Whichever origin you choose is an introduction to a dark world where choices have real, often brutal consequences. You'll meet some of the best companions ever written, who are complex people with their own motivations and prejudices, who will argue with each other and challenge your decisions. Dragon Age Origins gives you a reason to be angry and also a reason to fight, and it's honestly so immersive.
And number 7 is BioShock. In BioShock, you play as Jack. Your story starts in 1960 on a plane over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and then the plane crashes. You're the only survivor, surrounded by fire and wreckage in the dead of night, and you manage to swim to this single mysterious lighthouse sticking out of the water. You get into a bathysphere, a small submersible, and you begin your descent not down into darkness, but like into the impossible, into the Art Deco underwater city of Rapture. This city was built in secret by an industrialist magnate named Andrew Ryan. It was supposed to be an objectivist utopia, a place for the world's greatest artists, scientists, and thinkers to live free from the morals and governments of the surface world. But, as you can see from the moment you arrive, something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. The city is leaking, it's in ruins, and it's prowled by splicers, citizens who have been driven completely insane by genetic modification. A man named Atlas contacts you over the radio, and he needs your help. He needs you to save his family from the tyrannical Andrew Ryan, and he has a simple phrase for you. Would you kindly? The bathysphere ride alone is great. It's iconic. Like the way the city is revealed to you with the whales swimming past these beautiful leaking skyscrapers is cool. I think BioShock games always have great intros. Even BioShock Infinite, which is another great game, by the way, also does have an immersive intro. Your first weapon is a wrench, but eventually you find your first plasmid, Electrobolt. You realize you can zap a splicer who's standing in a puddle of water for extra damage, or you can short-circuit a busted door panel to open a new path. The game encourages you to combine your powers, your weapons, and the environment in creative ways. You're constantly finding these audio diaries, these little audio logs from the people who lived and died in Rapture, and you're slowly, piece by piece, putting together the story of how this paradise fell apart. The city itself is the main character. And most importantly, you have to make choices too, which is also a brilliant aspect of the game.
So up at number 6 is Prototype. You're a guy named Alex Mercer, and your body is a weapon, capable of shape-shifting in the most brutal ways imaginable. As you stumble out into New York City, you find that Manhattan is basically going to hell. A viral outbreak, the Blacklight virus, is turning citizens into grotesque monsters, and a Black Ops military force called Blackwatch has quarantined the island, trying to solve the problem by killing everything that moves. You are caught right in the middle of this three-way war between the military, the infected, and you. And your main goal is to piece together your past by literally consuming the memories of others. This game is the absolute definition of a power fantasy, and it wastes zero time handing you the keys. That first hour is an escalating series of holy crap moments. The traversal is amazing. You're sprinting up the entire side of a skyscraper, leaping off the roof, and then gliding halfway across the city before landing with an impact that sends cars flying. It feels amazing, and the game gives you this freedom almost immediately. You'll unlock the ability to morph your arms into gigantic, razor-sharp claws or a massive single blade. You are tearing enemies to shreds, you absorb enemies to instantly regain health, and most brilliantly, you can absorb a civilian or a soldier to take on their form as a perfect disguise. It's from Radical Entertainment, and they just went all in on making you feel like an unstoppable anti-hero. If you've played and loved the Infamous series and you've not played Prototype, you really need to fix that. It also has a sequel, Prototype 2, which is also great. It's a pure, chaotic joyride where the game just keeps throwing more and more amazing powers at you.
Next up at number 5 is Kingdom Come: Deliverance. This is a zero to hero story, but the game is way more interested in the zero part, and that's what makes it fun. You're not a special person, you are just Henry, the simple son of a blacksmith, living a peaceful, pretty mundane life in the silver mining village of Skalitz in 15th century Bohemia. Your biggest concerns is finishing the sword your dad is forging for a local lord, hanging out with your friends, and maybe getting into a fistfight with the town drunk. An army of Cuman mercenaries led by a man named Sigismund descends on your village. They burn it to the ground, they kill your parents. Luckily, you barely escape with your life. KCD is an absolute masterclass in getting you invested in a character. It forces you to live Henry's normal life. You're doing chores, you're learning the basics of trade, you're haggling. You're just a normal dude. And because you live that life, the tragedy, when it comes, hits you like a physical blow. It honestly gives you the most powerful motivation a character can possibly have. It's dedicated to historical accuracy and realism. There are no dragons, there's no magic. You are a peasant, meaning you can't even read at the start of the game because peasants were basically a nobody back then. You have to find someone to teach you how to read. It's a brutal combination of a deeply emotional, character-driven story. The escape from Skalitz is not a power fantasy, but instead it's more of a desperate, terrifying flight for survival. You are weak, you are scared, and you are completely outmatched. And I didn't even talk about the combat. Well, it's a complex directional system where you have to aim your swings and blocks, and it's hard to learn. The fact that KCD is considered a very great game, one of the reasons, aside from it being an historically accurate and realistic game, is the fact that it doesn't make you feel powerful. Of course, power fantasy games are great. For instance, Prototype, the game I talked about previously, is amazing because it makes you feel like an unstoppable force of nature. But sometimes you just want a game that makes you feel desperate. Desperate to survive, desperate to get stronger, and desperate to one day, eventually, get your revenge. KCD is a perfect example of that kind of game, and most importantly, it's that raw, grounded motivation that makes the game impossible to put down. Up at number 4, we have The Altars. The Alters is basically a game with a fascinating sci-fi idea, and one I've seen in a while. Yandalski, a simple space miner who crash lands on a hostile alien planet. He's the only survivor. His only hope for survival is this massive, wheel-shaped mobile base that he has to constantly keep moving to stay ahead of the deadly rising sun, which emits lethal radiation. The problem is, he can't possibly operate this colossal machine and gather all the necessary resources by himself. Using a rare substance called rapidium, and a quantum computer, Jan can create alternate versions of himself. The Alters. These are they're versions of Jan who made different choices at critical forks in his life. What if he'd become a technician instead of a miner? What if he'd pursued science? What if he'd stayed with his girlfriend? Things like that, you get? It feels like a blend of survival and deep psychological drama, and, well, it is. I mean, it's from 11-Bit Studios, the team behind Frostpunk and This War of Mine, so it has to be, because that's what they do. So you're immediately thrown into this desperate situation. You have to get the base moving before the sun kills you. You scramble outside, mining your first resources, feeling that intense pressure of the clock ticking down. You don't just get a mindless drone, you get a whole new person with a different personality, different skills, and a lifetime of memories that your Jan never had, just like I said before. And suddenly you're managing a volatile, unconventional crew made entirely of you. You're assigning them jobs, but you also have to talk to them, understand their pasts, and deal with the emotional baggage and conflicts that arise from having all these different life paths collide in one place. We've gotten a lot of great games this year, and honestly, The Alters is another very amazing game we've gotten so far, establishing this unique, obsessive loop of survival, base building, and existential crisis. It asks, what if, and then makes you live with all the answers at once.
Of course, at number 3 is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. You play as a professional monster slayer for hire, mutated and trained from childhood to be the perfect weapon against all things that go bump in the night. But The Witcher is less of a monster hunting gig and more of a deeply personal story. You're searching for your adopted daughter, Ciri, who is on the run from an otherworldly army of spectral riders known as the Wild Hunt, who want to harness her immense power. Especially if you're new to the series, the first thing you'll notice is the masterclass in its world building. You start in the Witcher stronghold of Kaer Morhen in a dream sequence, which perfectly reintroduces you to the key characters and the basic mechanics of the game. The game immediately tasks you with exploring the very first area, White Orchard, which is like a miniature, self-contained version of the massive open world to come. The gameplay hook is how it balances everything so perfectly. The combat is a fluid mix of swordplay, a steel sword for humans, a silver one for monsters, and Witcher signs, which are basically simple magic spells. You're dodging, you're rolling, you're casting protective shields and bursts of fire. The combat is an obsession, and even the storytelling. You have to use your Witcher senses to investigate, to follow tracks, to talk to locals, to piece together what kind of monster you're even dealing with. And even though the game came out back in 2015, they've supported it with so many updates and a next-gen patch that it still looks and plays phenomenally. You can't make a brief review of The Witcher 3 without talking about the side quests. Every single one feels like a handcrafted, meaningful short story. This game gives you the perfect taste of everything: the incredible characters, the mature storytelling, the deep world, and the satisfying combat. It just pulls you in and doesn't let go.
Up at number 2, we have Red Dead Redemption 2. This is a prequel, taking place years before the first game. You're the senior enforcer and loyal right-hand man in the gang, a sprawling family of outlaws, misfits, and dreamers led by the charismatic and increasingly unstable Dutch. The story begins at the absolute worst moment for the gang. The Age of Outlaws is dying, a botched ferry robbery in a town called Blackwater has gone horribly wrong, and you're on the run, forced high up into the snowy, blizzard-swept mountains. RDR2 is kind of slow compared to the other games on this list. I'm talking about the opening scene, but what happens after that is immersive. The intro is kind of trying to make you feel cold, desperate, and hungry right alongside Arthur and the rest of the camp. The sheer, almost insane level of detail that Rockstar Games packed into this world, the way Arthur physically shivers and pulls his coat tight against the wind, the way snow realistically cakes on his shoulders and melts when he goes inside, the clunky, weighty feel of the guns. This game has you being completely and utterly immersed. You're introduced to this incredible cast of characters by huddling around a campfire with them, listening to their stories, feeling their desperation. The game forces you to slow down and just exist in its world. It's a bold choice, and it pays off immensely. It connects you to Arthur, it connects you to the gang, and it connects you to this, it connects you to Arthur, it connects you to the gang, and it connects you to the beautiful, brutal, and unbelievably believable world. And once that connection is made, you are not putting this game down. Trust me.
So at number 1, we have Clair Obscur Expedition 33. In this world, there is an entity called the Paintress, and once every year she awakens, goes to her monolith and paints a single number, and everyone in the world who is that age simply vanishes, erases from existence. The number gets lower every year. You are part of Expedition 33, a desperate, one-last-chance mission to travel to the Paintress and destroy her before she can paint again. Sandfall Interactive introduces you to this stunningly beautiful, almost dreamlike world, but it's the gameplay, the combat, that will absolutely obsess you. It's a reactive turn-based combat, and it's a JRPG at its core. You're selecting attacks and skills from a wheel, but it's infused with real-time actions that keep you constantly engaged. When an enemy attacks you, you have to react. You have to watch the enemy's attack patterns and, in real time, decide to parry, dodge, or jump to avoid damage. A perfect dodge might restore some of your action points. A perfect parry might let you unleash a devastating counterattack. Your own special skills require timed button presses to chain combos together and maximize their power. You can even enter a free aim mode, like a third-person shooter, to target specific weak points on enemies for more damage. This is a blend of a deeply emotional, high-stakes story and a combat system that is immediately engaging and addictive. You're learning the rhythms, you're getting humbled by the timing, but it never feels unfair. This is a game that feels both classic and revolutionary at the same time. It is, without a doubt, a great hook.
And as an honorable mention is Doom: The Dark Ages. So the premise here is a prequel. This is the origin story of the Doomslayer's rage. We're going way back before Doom 2016 to a time when the Slayer was basically a super weapon for a medieval aliens kingdom called Argent Denor in their war against Hell. This isn't Earth's Dark Ages, it's this awesome heavy metal fantasy setting that mixes sci-fi tech with medieval aesthetics. The big change from Doom Eternal is the feel. The gameplay is more grounded, more about raw power than acrobatics, and the first new toy they give you is the Shield Saw. It's a shield that you can use to block and parry attacks, but you can also pull a ripcord and it becomes a spinning saw blade of death that you can throw like a Captain America shield or something. The combat loop is instantly satisfying. You're swapping between classic guns like the super shotgun and new bone-chewing weapons like a flail and a gun that shoots skulls, and then you get to pilot an Atlan. It's a giant 30-story tall mech, and you get to go toe-to-toe with colossal demons. It's from ID Software, of course, and they've just completely nailed that feeling of being this unstoppable, furious force of nature, just like they always do. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and also turn on the notification. And lastly, don't forget to drink water and get some sun. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.